All right, so any questions I can answer? Yes.
So how do you catch a child that comes in 6th grade and happens to have all this format?
She's doing great. Well, it helps when they're really self-motivated. So that was part of the reason that I chose as the first topic what we do in writing class. It was an opportunity for me to teach them this process, have them write about the process, and have them doing the process all at the same time. So this is something we're very accustomed to, incorporating someone in. Does it make things a little more challenging? Absolutely. It means we have to stop and do lessons on there, and there sometimes. But it's really, the process is learned by going through it. And each time we do it, the whole class has to go through this process of laundry listing, of organizing, of making an outline. And so kids who come in late at the program, they just start right into that process.
And their peers help them too, I think.
They do. And vice versa. Yes?
Through these processes, do you touch the creative writing and expository as well? Or what stage do they start getting?
We do some creative writing. My inclination, honestly, would always be to write an expository essay about stuff from the curriculum, the sort of example that I gave you. And so we will occasionally, often you hear of writing programs, you have to do a compare-contrast essay, and you have to write a letter, and you have to do, yes, I want to make sure that they're exposed to different forms of writing in that kind, but they're all derivative from theme, supporting evidence, conclusion. If they've mastered that, I'm not concerned about the rest. Now, creative writing, they love to do creative writing. They love the opportunity to create. So, I know. Han is one of the child who has just amazing logical structure and doesn't want to add any of the flourishes. That's why I thank my lucky stars for the IEW, the Institute for Excellence in Writing program, because I used to have no idea what to do with those kids, because I'd look at the answer and, okay, you did the job, it's all here, but how do we inject more creativity into it? Well, the dress-ups making required dress-ups helps them to bring out that creativity. But anyway, most of the kids really like the opportunity to do creative writing, and so we do include some simply for that reason, because they really enjoy it. I do usually try to tie it to the curriculum. So for example, one writing assignment I've historically given, I don't know if I'm going to this year, room 202, Mr. Lewis's homeroom, just read An Enemy of the People by Ibsen. And An Enemy of the People ends rather inconclusively. I mean, it ends with a starting point. And so I used to have them write a 6th act for An Enemy of the People, things like that. So they get the opportunity to be totally creative, but it's still connected to something important that's being done at school. And then Mrs. Battaglia at the elementary level does introduce them to things like compare and contrast, or a process essay, how to describe the steps in a process, or a letter. So they do get exposure to that. But at my point, it's what are we doing in the curriculum? Other questions? Yes?
Is there an optimal length of the essay that you ask of them? I'm afraid one of mine might be cutting it short. Cutting it short?
Well, he'll find that out in editing. If I think there's not enough information, I'll say, put more in. I accept a pretty wide range in length. It depends if the job's been done. Is it clear? Is it articulate? With this one, they know that they have to build the excitement. They have to build the story. If they haven't done that, I'll tell them they haven't done that.
The Institute for Excellence, is it always a paragraph, or
no.
A poem sometimes?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. Paragraph is one thing. They've done some biographical paragraphs this year. Mrs. Battaglia is not terribly fond of this part, but there's a story from pictures sequence. But the other one that she does commonly use is a story sequence. So for example, they did the dog and the meat. I think Trevor's class did this. Dog has a piece of meat, sees his reflection, drops his meat to get based on an Aesop's fable. So all they're given is those 3 prompts, those 3 little aspects of the story, and then they have to write the story from that. So that's another thing. But again, the structure is given to them, and they're just having to fill it out and make it their own. And I do have some examples here. Yes?
Lisa, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
And really, I will use an example of something that I had read, that Emily had written.
Uh-huh.
And she had read the book Matilda, and they were writing about Mrs. Trunchbull in the book.
Okay.
And although lots of dress-ups, and it certainly didn't sound like it was written by an 8-year-old, however, it did say, Mrs. Trunchbull is, and I'm not sure if I have the words exactly correct, she used 2 things that were unrelated, mean and muscular. And at what point
do we start refining that sort of thing?
Hey, we
Later.
talk to her at home, so don't.
Oh, no, yeah, later.
I mean,
I happen to know exactly, not from that writing assignment, from another one, I know exactly what you're talking about. So the quality adjectives things, try to think of an example. If I were describing this room, the parents were sitting at a polished, shiny table in a grand, large room, listening to a fascinating, exciting lecture. But I noticed this pattern that some of them would have da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, 2 adjectives for every noun. And I believe, because Mrs. Battaglia came to me and said, what do I do about this? They're trying to be ambitious about it. They're trying to inject description in there, and it's going all wrong.
But also the fact that they're trying to say, okay, you wouldn't say your brother.
Would say those 2 together.
Right, and so is that something?
My tall, funny brother. It just, yeah, I understand. Here's what, I need to follow up with her and ask her if she did this, but one thing I'll say is we're often responsive to those sorts of phenomena. I would say it's not going to be corrected in everything she writes because, again, it does reflect that ambitiousness and temporary awkwardness with these techniques. And the more she reads, the more she sees good examples, the more she's going to perfect this technique. I can use, just as an example as a mother watching my child grow up. I remember, and some of you probably do too, the stage at which Lana started to use the word because. And when they first start to use the word because, they do it totally wrong. They have no idea what because means. So Lana, I remember the day she was giggling, and I said, what's funny, Lana? And why is that funny, Lana? And she said, it's funny because I'm laughing. Okay, and then another one, we went to a birthday party, and she was 2. They were both turning 2, and someone had a cake, and I said, why does he have a cake? Meaning, oh, because it's his birthday. Why does he have a cake? Because I eat it. Okay, again, it's not exactly cause and effect, but that is it was breathtaking to me. She's trying to use because. It's so cute. So the point is, they stumble through the use first, and then later they'll get it. Now, if they're still doing that in my class, then it becomes a problem. We really have to address it. But the other thing I wanted to say is we are responsive to the things that are coming up habitually in a class. So we don't just go in with an agenda. We also modify what we're doing according to problems we're seeing. So for example, when we were getting the 2 adjectives, which I think is related to, it's just she felt like she needed to have 2 adjectives to go with the noun. So when we see a problem like that, I told Mrs. Battaglia, take a paragraph from The Secret Garden. I tried to think of one of the most beautifully written books I could think of. Copy the paragraph, then do it again, putting 2 adjectives for every noun, and have them see that in that case, it did not make the writing more beautiful. It did not make the writing more descriptive. It actually undermines the point. And so again, just seeing those 2 examples side by side, they might not grasp it right away, but it's going to help them to grasp the point in the long run.